Hey, friends. So I've been working on my piano course again, which is very exciting. And in a way, this is reviewing material, reviewing content that I created a while back in light of new learning that I've done since then, and just a kind of increased understanding of that same content from having now employed it and taught it many times, and so some really enjoyable. I mean, I'm finding, first of all, just on the level of building a course, I'm really finding that this is something I love, and I'm not surprised, but I'm really inspired by t- thinking about and then manifesting ways of communicating about music theory, about the emotional, spiritual experience of music. And some really beautiful things have been coming through recently. Like, I had a session yesterday for our teacher training course, which has picked up again after a short break. And oh my God, it's really it's got it hit that a month away has really allowed, I think, me, but really everyone, to kind of deepen into what this course is really about, and really let ourselves go to a new level. But and it's so one of the ideas that came up yesterday, I think Madeline mentioned it. Oh yeah, she was talking. We were talking about the Western musical tradition, and I at one point told another student and collaborator on the program that I sometimes imagine various composers listening to each other. Like, for example, and usually, it's like the ones who didn't get to hear the later one, the earlier ones who didn't get to hear the later ones. So, like, I imagine Mozart listening to Ravel, and what that experience would be for Mozart, or I imagine Mozart listening to Chopin, right? Just I just I so for something about imagining what would happen to that genius musical mind, to be kind of just magically transported 50 years, 70 years, 100 years into the future, and see and hear what music is doing, what music has become. I get a lot of enjoyment out of that. And Madeline said something. I don't know that it was that a direct outgrowth of that kind of thought experiment that I play with myself sometimes. Um, but I think it was in that same vein. She said, the Western musical tradition really has a profound spiritual component. Western music as a discipline is, she didn't say this, but I'm saying it's like a spiritual practice. And one of the things Madeline pointed out is that's why we work so hard. That's why we work so hard, too hard, and in a lot of the wrong ways. But that underlying, just practicing for 8 hours a day or whatever, even if it's not that extreme, but just the compulsion to engage and to go deeper and to learn and to is is a spiritual impulse. And it clarified for me something about my own impulse to practice the piano and to learn particularly classical music, and particularly forms of classical music that I've always, for whatever reason, felt were somehow slightly beyond me, as a jazz musician, pop musician, songwriter. Um, there are kind of certain technical, virtuosic pieces and worlds within classical piano that I just didn't grow up playing that. I wasn't really trained for that. I dropped my lessons at a certain point in my training before I really got there. So, and that has given me occasionally, not so much anymore, but the sense of like, oh man, I regret. I wish I hadn't stopped. I wish I had gone, I wish I had really climbed into those rungs. But at the same time, I also kind of have to accept that my musical journey is exactly what it has needed to be. And it gives me I engage with music out of total love and total freedom in a way. Not that I don't have hang-ups or tensions or anxieties here and there, but my relationship to it is a chosen one. I choose my relationship, and I have made choices that have given me an incredibly rich experience of music. So that's how when I come up against that, like, oh man, I wish I could play all 24 Chopin etudes perfectly. I that's how I remind myself, that's not who I am, and that's not who I want to be. Because if I did, that's who I would be. But my fascination and my drive to engage with that and to dig deep and to go as far as I can. When Madeline when Madeline talked about this being a spiritual tradition, it clicked for me that this is a spiritual practice for me. I'm not doing that out of a utilitarian sense that that's what I need to be able to do in order to live my life. I've lived a perfectly good life so far without those skills, so hopefully they're not too vital to my ongoing existence. But my experience of the impulse is incredibly powerful. It's as compelling as anything else in my life. And when I then connected, oh, it's because it's a spiritual practice. The energy driving that is not psychological. It's existential. It's from within. That really kind of ding, that really resonated for me. That really rang my bell. Because all of a sudden I can, as opposed to trying to analyze, why do I do this? Why am I doing this? I feel much more capable of trusting. And I have talked in some recent posts about gaining some clarity on what role music, and specifically piano, play in my life, and what my how to keep my orientation healthy. And I spoke about a few weeks ago, I spoke about how I have sometimes felt like I use piano practice almost as a proxy form of progress. In other words, I get to these little micro doses of progress from working on a particularly difficult piece or whatever, and then from kind of getting to where that becomes easy, I sense, oh, I've built a new skill, I've grown. But the too much focus on those has actually kind of distracted me from other things in my life that are really important and that deserve more attention than they're getting, because I kind of get pulled into this, you know, this mode. And but then the understanding that came through yesterday about, oh, this is a spiritual practice, this is a spiritual impulse. It doesn't undo that recognition that I need to put my attention, I need to distribute my attention skillfully, but it does explain the intensity of the urge, and B, it alleviates my impulse to, or my instinct to critique those choices, because critiquing those choices it's helpful up to the point where it's helpful in the sense that if it will help me modify my behavior and make more positive, have more integrity, then it's then great. That's the kind of insights we're looking for. But getting caught up in, oh, why did I do that, or what was the, is that, that's which, when I'm in the psychological space, that can happen. I can sort of start humming and hawing, and my mind critiques my mind, and then my mind critiques the critique that my mind made of my mind, and it's like, where are we going here? What are we doing? There's no there. There's a powerful impulse here. What is it? Oh. Playing Chopin is like meditation. That's what I was doing. Nothing more needs to be said. There's no, it doesn't need to be explained or justified or fit into a priority scheme. So I think I'm coming through a wave of recognition on that front, which is, both it propels me forward, and it also at the same time allows me to chill out a little bit about where my growth is coming from, and how what I'm really devoting my energy to. So yeah, that's my Friday. That's where I've arrived at the end of this week. It's been a kind of a big week, but lots of movement, lots of positive awakening. So thanks, folks. Much love. Have a wonderful day. I'll see you tomorrow.